Pride can also be thinking that you're the only qualified person for a certain position
Mm-hmm.
or a certain status too.
Yeah.
Welcome to another YA Talk where we have real talks about real life situations. I'm Antoine and I'm here with
Katie.
And
Hello.
what are we talking about today, Katie?
We are talking about pride.
So, can you tell me what is pride?
Okay, so it can be a lot of different things, but how we're talking about it is really like having an inflated sense of self or like opinion of yourself, right? Thinking you're very important, having this inflated sense of merit or superiority. It can be self-respect and self-esteem too, but really we want to focus on the other side of things, right?
Right. So, the definition I got from it is basically the same thing you had. Was pride is the quality of having an excessively high opinion of oneself or one's importance.
Yep.
So, can you give a few examples of that?
It really could be thinking that you are it, right? Thinking that you are the best at whatever thing that you're trying to do.
Or that you're the only one that matters in the
Yeah.
certain situation.
True.
Pride can also be thinking that you're the only qualified person for a certain position
Mm-hmm.
or a certain status too.
Yeah.
But also, pride can be thinking that you're too important to help someone.
Like you're too above a situation.
Right. It's above me now. No. You're supposed to help people.
Or I'm more important than that.
Right.
There's other people who can handle that, right?
Yeah. So, where do you think pride comes from?
Well, we talked about this a little bit before, but it comes from like a lack of self-acceptance probably.
Yeah.
But it's also, we think it's like one thing is it to be too much of something, having like too much of a sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
But it could also be the opposite of that too.
Talk about that.
Okay, so in a way that I didn't really not know but understand is that like low self-esteem and having that like incredibly low sense of self is also really prideful.
Mm.
Like, and I heard somebody actually here talk about that one Wednesday night, and I was like, wait, it is? Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, what do you mean?
You would think it's
like,
only like the high-minded thing, but it's actually the low-minded thing.
yeah, it's not just like the high, like I'm loud and talking about how great I am, but it's also like that low like self-worthlessness and like that low self-esteem and that insecurity that's also a form of pride that we don't really realize or think about because it's still about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's still, that's where all pride stems from, right? It's not it's the focus on you,
Right.
not even if you're not trying to be loud about it or say you're really cool. It's just, how do other people see me? Why don't other people see me?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not loved or seen or whatever? It can be the opposite of that, not just the everybody sees me so I'm great. It can be that insecurity that's like festering, right?
Right.
Inside.
So, like, I think of it like a old person would say. You take the PR, move it. You take a DE, move it. Sandwiched in the middle of that is the I.
You would say that.
Right.
Like
and
an old person.
and sandwiched in the middle of it is I, because when you're talking about pride, it's all about you. How
Yeah.
can you get your foot forward, whether you're insecure or too confident?
Yeah.
Because
it's both and. It's
right,
not just one or
it's
the
not
other.
either or. It's both and.
Yeah.
So, talk about a situation in your life where you were prideful.
I think I probably dealt more with the opposite end. So I don't think I'm like have really ever been like outwardly super confident,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I didn't, and it was funny like talking about this, the lower end of stuff, right? You don't realize that you deal with something until like right when you are healed from that, right? Like you
Right.
don't realize that that's what you dealt with until it's like all of a sudden this like veil comes off and you're like, wow, like I can't believe that was something I was struggling with. But I think that like the sense of like the insecurity part was something I really struggled with for like a number of years, right? That like low self-worth, low self-esteem. And it fell into this like comparison. Okay, like comparison game of me and the people around me and people who I love, right? Not even like, and that festers into, it's not just pride of the comparison and feeling that, and it like fuels that like worthlessness, self-loathing, right? Because then you just get like more and more intense about it and that insecurity around other people. But it then feeds into like being jealous of other people. Right? And being like, well, why don't I have that?
And
or
then
like,
you're envious because you want to get what they have because you feel like they don't deserve what they have too.
Yeah. Or like you're happy for them, but it's all fake. It's really fake. It's a lot of like being fake happy. And I think I dealt with that for a really, really long time of just being transparent, like for years, dealing with like low self-confidence, low self-esteem, but not realizing that was because it was still focused on me. Like I didn't begin to become healed from that until I like just laid them before God and being like, Jesus, help me with all of this. Like, right. Help me make these changes. And then coming out of that being like, oh, wow, that's what you were dealing with the whole time. It's pretty crazy. How about you?
So my situation was on actually
it's like the opposite, right?
So it's crazy that we had we talk about both sides of pride, but you dealt with one and I dealt with the other. Growing up let's first make this statement. Favor ain't fair.
True story.
Favor is not fair. So when you have a favorite life or a favorite gift, or God has put his hand on some type of skill set that you have, it automatically exceeds so many others around you. So when people validate that through compliments and likes and hearts and shares and stuff, that it becomes normal to you. So coming up as a musician, I was always viewed in this realm of like, oh, he's the best musician here, there, and everywhere. But there's been situations where I've been humble. But also in school, we were talking about this before, where I felt like I was the smartest in the classroom, not just because of like the educational or the work skills that I had, but simply because I was the one mainly doing all the group work. So I felt like I was the smartest and they couldn't like handle their part. So I had this arrogance about me that since you're not going to do it anyway, so I'm just going to take all the work and do it because I feel like I need to do it. See how I feel like I need to do what I think I need to do, because it's all about pride. So where it really came into play for me, like pride really settled in, is where I'll be very transparent. This whole past school year in my playing, I felt like because of times past before, there's always crowd interaction with players, and especially in the jazz realm, the better the crowd is, the better the gig really is when you're playing. So there's always crowd interaction, and they always validate like, woo, oh, yay, all that stuff. And there was a part where, like a long time ago, before I even get to that part, a long time ago, my cousin, and I credit him for this, for my mindset towards playing for God, is he said, whatever you do, wherever you play, always play for God. And it takes your mind off of yourself, and it really puts that you're playing, and whatever validation you get from your playing is not even for you. But it's for God, and through God's glory coming down on you, it goes out to the people, right? So what happened was, there was a certain point this year where I felt entitled to the validation,
to the applause.
So I was like, okay, so I'm doing these solos and I'm trying to kill it as best as I can, and I'm not getting the validation that I used to get. And now I'm like, I feel entitled to this.
Like, and then, why isn't that happening?
And then here's the crazy part. Other people that, in my mind, in the prideful mind that was starting to enter in, other people weren't doing as great, but getting more validation. And now I'm like, wait a minute. Hey, what is, like that's where your mind goes when you're prideful, and it makes it all about I.
And it like picks up on that little insecurity. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing that I'm not doing?
Right.
Why are they getting that when I'm not getting that? They did this, this, and this, and I didn't do that. Why are they getting that?
Because you start asking when you have pride, it's literally the comparison game between you and others. It's really just a comparison game of like, what more are they doing that I ain't? Like, oh, I have this skill set.
Yeah.
Why am I not in this position? Or I have this to bring to the table. Why am I not getting this favor in everybody else?
Looked over?
Why did I get looked over? It's because you're constantly thinking about comparing yourself to others. That's why we said in the beginning, the definition of pride is really, it's like, I'm gonna read it just like it says. Pride is the quality of having an excessively high opinion of oneself or one's importance. This is not to come for anybody, but this is just a self-awareness thing that we've analyzed in our lives, that we've both had pride.
Yeah.
In both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, because, well, I would say like a high or like an incredibly low.
Yeah.
I know that that's not the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition, right? But like, I would definitely add that in because it's just so funny. I never really ever thought about pride as that. I just thought about pride as like the cocky person who won't shut up about how cool they are or how great they are. But it's really like so much more than that. And
there are actually 2 biblical scenarios that tie to both sides of pride.
Ooh, let's talk about it.
So the first side of pride is the high-minded pride, where I believe it's in, I have it here, Luke 10, if you go read it at home, Luke 10, 25 through 37. It's talking about the Good Samaritan. And there was a Jew who got beat up, got robbed, got left on the side of the road. Now he hurt, in pain, in need of like help, right? And there was a Jewish priest that seen him and then went to the other side of the road. Uh-oh.
That's rude.
Then there's a Levite, that's another Jewish official, that looks at him, goes to the other side of the road. And then a sworn enemy of the Jews, a.k.a. the Samaritans, had I like this one preacher that says, the all-mitigated gall to go down and help a sworn enemy, not only repaying him what he needed to be paid, but taking care of him.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, okay, if you have some type of quote unquote title, what makes you think that you're, how do I say this, Jesus? What makes you think that you can't help someone else in need?
What excuses you from
what excuses
being the
you
person to help? Like
right.
Being required to step in. Right? It's just, that's so funny to me that like Levites were like the priests and like the pastors, right? That would be like, no shade to Pastor Lincoln. That'd be like somebody from YA, right? Something happens at YA. Somebody gets hurt, and Pastor Lincoln just stands there and looks at them and goes, cool, who's going to deal with that? Like, he would never do that.
Right.
P.S. He's a helpful person, right? Okay.
Right.
But that's what that scenario would be like. It'd be like, if we were at church and something happened and Pastor Dave just stood there and was like, cool, somebody come get this guy. Like, that's what would be happening.
Right.
But
the other side of pride, where it's the low self-esteem part, is we look at Saul, the king. He was a person who had the low self-esteem pride because he didn't want to take on the full responsibility of being the king that Jesus called him to be, or God called him to be. So
that's interesting too, because he was supposed to be king for a season, right? And when you see your successor, it causes you to be insecure. He could see the person who was coming to take his place.
And he wanted to kill him, huh?
He literally tried to multiple times.
Right.
I mean, that's crazy. But like that, I mean, in that case was definitely like the comparison game. Like, what's this young kid got that I don't have? And
that's another topic.
That's a
because
whole other,
right,
go to a whole other
because
thing.
when you talk about David, David, the person with the low countenance, got chosen over every other brother that he had that were
You're
stronger
trying to, you're
and
trying to
bigger
work
than
ahead. You're talking about being humble before we're
right.
talking about being
You know,
humble.
but look, but listen, it was all the comparison game.
It really
Think
was.
about it. So we often highlight David, but we don't shed light on the pride that his brothers could have had.
Oh, for sure.
We talk about Joseph, but we don't shed the light on the pride and the envy
Oh,
that
for sure.
their brothers had,
Yeah.
right? So,
I love this too, right? There's like a million proverbs,
Mhm.
right? Proverbs is the best because it's like wise people do this, dumb people do this, right? Be the wise person. But
right.
it says first pride, then the crash. The bigger the ego, the bigger the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Arrogant know-it-alls stir up discord, but wise men and women listen to each other's counsel, right? It's just, this is the best one to me. I use the Message version for these, right? Because I just wanted to kind of hear it a different way. But it said, God can't stomach arrogance or pretense. Believe me, he'll put those upstarts in their place. Like, that's funny to me because it's you think you're great,
Mhm.
but you don't see the situation that's coming around the corner that's going to put you right in the place
Right.
that you don't really want to be.
And then there's another proverb, Proverbs 21:4,
Yeah.
and I read the NKJV version because I'm an old head. Leave me alone.
He is an old
It
man.
says, a haughty look and a proud heart. Haughty means high-minded. So a haughty look
Yep.
and a proud heart and the plowing of the wicked are sin. Now, I have a Bible study that analyzes this verse, and it says this Hebrew word for plowing could also be translated as unplowed tillage, aka fallow ground, which means like hard ground that's not able to be planted in.
Mm-hmm.
So, just as an unplowed field produces weeds, a high look and a proud heart produces sin. So basically, what we get from this is that pride is a weed to the heart.
Yeah.
And there's things that can't grow until you take out the weeds.
It takes up all the space.
Right. And God is the gardener,
Yeah.
and everybody loves the planting. But as I've heard before, God is not only a planter, but he's a pruner.
Yeah, if there's not enough space, how's he supposed to trade out for what he has for you? Like, that's the thing. If there's no room, he's got to rip all that out first.
Right. So we're going to start to close out on how does pride have a negative effect on people or the person on the receiving end of someone else's pride? Just a few things.
I think for you, the person, right? Like you, when you are dealing with pride, either like that really high-minded or that low-minded look, like you cannot enjoy where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't, because you are caught up in that comparison either way, right? How can I get what somebody else has, or how can other people see how great I am, or how can I get that next thing? It's like you're always clamoring for something more, right? But also I think that it can, to other people, it can make people feel inferior. You're making other people feel inferior.
Right. Pride
You're
affects
hurting
your
people's
reach.
feelings.
It affects your
Yeah.
reach.
Makes you ineffective.
Because you're on your, okay, we talked about this little analogy maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
You're the English teacher. I don't know.
It's probably an
So basically, if you're helping someone up a ladder,
oh yeah,
you can't help people from the top of the ladder.
you have to climb down.
You have to climb down to a certain extent, not getting on their level, because you have to climb back up when you get on their level. But you have to climb to a certain extent, a midway point, to where not only you could climb back up, but you can help them up and they can climb to you. But if you're on your high horse, you can't help anybody at the top of the ladder.
You're just looking down at them like, oh, hey, come on up here.
But
You're like, I can't get there.
Pride also affects your favor and the grace on your life.
It really does.
Favor and the grace on your life, when you're humble, and when you're humble, it's like an elevator.
Oh, don't go there yet.
I'm not gonna go there yet.
Don't go there yet.
Shh. When you're humble, it's like an elevator, but when you're prideful, it's like the stairs.
Yeah.
So imagine the elevator versus the stairs in the Sears Tower in Chicago.
It affects the amount of work, because we were talking about this before, but like prideful people and humble people, like, you can still be successful either way, right? There's still prideful people that have success, and good things happen sometimes, right? Or it looks like good things are happening on the outside, but it's like,
How long will it last with
one
pride?
thing, how long will it last, or how long did it take you to get there?
Right. With pride in your
With
heart.
pride versus like in that heart of humility, right? Or in that season of humility.
And then lastly, pride, when you have pride in your heart, especially when you're doing things for God, it affects your servitude.
Yeah.
Because you think that the validation or the praise or the glory or something belongs to you, when actually the whole point about serving is it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about who I'm serving. And because we're servants of God, all the praise, all the glory, all the honor, all the validation, all the applause, everything belongs to him.
Yeah.
And through him getting the glory, he can shine it on us, through us. And we can keep serving with grace and not unfavored work.
It's easy to get caught up in that too,
Right.
especially when you're like in a position of like where we're both in positions where we're like seen here at church. You know what I mean? Or you're in somewhere that's seen. It's really easy to get caught up in that. Sometimes,
It's so
right?
easy, but we
then
have
you
to
check you ask, right? To
Yeah.
Like you just ask the Lord to check you, right? Believe me, he'll check you.
Oh yeah, and we have to. We'll have to remember that none of what I had to do, and especially in my servitude, and especially in my playing, and the leadership that I have here and in other places, is that I have to remember that I can't be too high to reach down low.
Yeah.
And then I also can't be in my mind that some of what's going on in the crowd validating what we're doing on stage goes to me, because none of it does. Everything that we do, everything that we create, everything that we make, all praises belong to God. All of it.
We got to focus on Jesus, not us.
Right. And we're going to end it right there.
Yep.
In the next podcast, we'll be talking about how to battle pride with humbleness. Stick around till next week. We'll see you. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye,
Subscribe. Bye.